I'm Sam Toabe. I'm the gallery director of the University Hall Gallery. This is part of our ongoing programming that we've been producing while the gallery has been closed during the pandemic. And just want to thank the art department for supporting these programs, as well as the Cultural Liberal Arts at UMass Boston. And especially thank you, Margaret, and to the Capstone course for hosting us. So why don't we just go ahead and get started? And Margaret, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay, I just have a brief introduction for Sam and just some thank yous. So I'm just really thrilled that we have Rixy with us today as part of the Visiting Artist Talk through the University Hall Gallery. And thank you to Sam for bringing and putting this all together. It's wonderful. I just want to also thank you for involving the capstone class. You know, the 481 class, the studio capstone class, it's designed primarily for art majors who are working on advanced studio work in all media. The capstone course serves as the culminating and usually integrative experience of the art major and for students focusing on the studio arts. So this semester, my students have been focusing on this idea of limitations as they create work in this kind of unusual time of remote learning. So I just want to, please welcome Sam and Rixy as you introduce both Rixy as well and her work. So thank you, Sam, for having us.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here. And, as you mentioned during the introduction when you were still meeting with your class, each year the capstone students also produce an exhibition. And it's been like a really big pleasure of mine to be able to help produce those and work with students to help show their work for the first time. So today we're going to be hosting this talk with Rixy, who, as we mentioned, is an alumnus of UMass Boston. Here's some of her work here on the left is All at Once, which I believe was produced in Mexico as part of her residency that she did down there with the Ruth Butler Travel Fellowship. Every year we produce the Capstone Exhibitions, which Rixy was able to take part in twice. These are programs that are produced for the public, allowing students to write about and present their work to the public, often for the first time. Rixy's piece in her second participation was really ambitious, this large-scale sculpture entitled Shorty, which was produced in 2019. In past years, we've had lots of different work, sculpture, painting, even some performance as well. Here's just a few installation shots. And then this last year, we had to actually produce the program online due to the pandemic, which is something that we'll be producing again this year. So I look forward to working with the students in Capstone to help realize different ways of presenting their work, writing about it, and preparing it for an online exhibition. So just to give Rixy a bit more of a formal introduction, this is an artist statement that Rixy prepared. Moving through her own jungles of identity, Rixy conceptualizes feminine divinity in their various forms. Working primarily through painting, sculpture, and public art, her tool belt of disciplines help reinterpret stories of agency, like episodes of a never-ending cartoon. The work often plays on the range of sensual femininity. Here it is the way our bodies react, the senses they pick up, and what it means for them to be born, to grow, and heal in their surroundings. Rixy received her BA in studio art at UMass Boston with a concentration in sculpture that goes beyond the physical practice to understand space, community, and what we feel in between. She received the 2019 Ruth Butler Travel Fellowship, with which she pursued a studio residency in Mexico City. And in 2017, received an Arts Learning Award for Student Arts Advocacy. Her passion to expand her practice personifies her drive to educate the community in overlooked disciplines to provide access to the arts for others. This has allowed her to evolve into a teacher and director, recently becoming an adjunct instructor at the Boston Architecture College and the public art coordinator of Central Square's BID's Speak Your Piece campaign, which I've seen a few of the installations and it's been really phenomenal. So thank you, Rixy, for helping produce that work. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rixy. Thank you for joining us, Rixy.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, class. Like, I'm so excited to be here to talk to you all from having experienced this twice, also just really enjoying what I've been able to do while I was having my time at UMass, figuring it all out, and even now when I'm still figuring it all out, but in a lot of new and grown ways. So it's very exciting. So thank you all 1,000 times.
Yeah, of course. Happy to have you, Rixy.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen.
Please.
While I speak with you all.
And just some programming notes. Rixy will be talking for about 20 minutes, half hour, and then we'll go into a Q&A. But Rixy, you mentioned that you're okay with interjecting some questions here and there students have.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm be very chill about it. So if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to put in the chat. If you want to raise your hand or get off your video, you're more than welcome to go through this. Thank you guys just in general for having this time and letting me talk about this. So it's just very inspirational to be here to share with you all and kind of see where you guys are going to go with the work that you produce as well. So like they said before, my name is Rixy. I am an interdisciplinary artist mixing so many different things together. Honestly, it's a never-ending journey of just figuring out these works and how you want to create yourself. I'm very much into range and trying to figure out what belongs in certain spaces. That's why I've been always very appreciative of my time at UMass with exploring all these different departments. And it's been able to help me really get into mural work like this one, which was one of my last pieces that I did in Lawrence. So thank you all. All right, myself. I'm an artist, but like I said, I can go through so many different other labels or structures, I guess. The more you experience, the more that you're understanding, asking yourself questions. I'm a very curious cat type person, so I'm kind of just like wandering off into like new things to explore and enjoy. And that's why I really was able to host myself in so many different types of positions. This list can really go on about how I like to describe parts of myself. I love what I'm doing with teaching and community organizing, especially now, and trying to learn and document so much within what we're experiencing in this world, and just trying to create and be through all those different waves is already enough. So understanding how I'm partaking in that and being a different type of person all the time, but it's always still connected and rooted back to like what's most important for myself. Oh, there we go. So at UMass Boston, one of my favorite things to do was literally jump around from class to class, really enjoy all that I can in different areas. So from digital to painting, drawing, sculpture. I think I took sculpture more times than I needed to, but I just enjoyed it so much because I really was able to have this new understanding of what it meant to create sculpture personally. While having taken painting, having done digital work, having done so many different types of avenues, for me, I was able to really kind of piece together and know how to reinterpret things around me. So it really kind of like jumped off for me to have this understanding. The two pieces on the right was something that I did during my sculpture workshop. This yellow thread maze tent installation, and then my titty leer. Learning new practices. I asked a lot of questions. That's why I really appreciate the staff, because they were willing to answer them and really be guidance and the things that I wanted to like figure out, you know? The piece on the left was definitely like a big starting point for stylizing, but then having taken what I've learned in sculpture, having taken what I learned in painting, and this was my first capstone project. I really I don't imagine myself getting into illustration at that time. It wasn't something I was exploring so much with when having done sculpture, and that being like performance art, being these like 3D physical things. So that was a really fun time to have the opportunity to blend my interests. Capstone really provided that like floor for me to do that. Towards the end of my time, I applied for the Ruth Butler Scholarship after being convinced from staff members, because I didn't know what to expect. I was kind of like nervous. I was talking about it, but I just didn't know what to do if I wanted to apply, or like how to do it, honestly. Like, what do I want to propose? I didn't know how to answer that question. Um, but eventually I applied, just being very honest with myself about the fact that I was like, kind of want to go here and I want to study this. Like, I want to go to Mexico. I want to study their muralism, the history of having these like large scale contexts with the different artists. It being such a center for Latinx culture and arts, so much has like been born from there. So I really wanted to be able to explore. And it's definitely a top 3 moment for me. I talk about Mexico all the time. I'm still friends with the people and organizations that I met while I was there. So I'll kind of like clockwise. This is Atea. This is the art studio community that I was able to have my studio space in. They provided me the residency space after I gave them the proposal of what I wanted to do, which I kind of steered my way off into doing a different type of project based off of that idea. And this was right in the center of downtown. It was such a beautiful place of having all different types of disciplines around me. It was literally the community that I was more than, my dream and reality didn't kind of like blend in that moment. I didn't expect to be in that space. It was so cool. Visiting around and being able to experience where I was and the communities I were able to experience in Coyoacan, which is where I was able to do this mural, was right in the center of where like Frida Kahlo lived, her studio space, which is here on the right. And I had met so many different types of muralists and street artists, one of my friends being Piensa. And the idea of murals down there isn't as rigid out of the country as it is within the cities and some of these towns, which is something that I'm still trying to challenge and learn, which is why I appreciate having those like kind of admin roles. But it was a great time to still be able to paint with a message while there was a lot of like political frustration happening in Mexico. While just being there, I didn't plan it at all. Me and him met one day. The next day we're like, all right, let's walk around and find a wall. So it was such a freeing experience to be able to do all this.
And Rixy, just to interject, when you say rigid by like is that like the bureaucratic rules of the city in terms of like finding a wall and executing a mural, or is it also just like the content of what kind of mural that you can produce?
Yes, it's all of those different types of layers. Honestly, it's the bureaucracy of who owns property, who has the rights to space. Even sidewalks here in Boston, there's only a certain amount that like people own of the sidewalk. So you're constantly kind of talking to a bunch of different layers and people within organizing murals in the States compared to maybe other countries. I haven't visited everybody yet, so I'm still trying to figure it out. But at least when it comes to Mexico and like Boston, very two differently political states. So we were able to just knock on this guy's wall because he had really bad graffiti on it. And we're like, can we just paint? And they were like, yeah, go ahead. They didn't mind.
That's great.
All right, when I came back, I had this collection of drawings. I had finished my second capstone round where I made that shorty piece. And I was just like, okay, I graduated. I went to Mexico, what am I doing? Again, always kind of like, what am I doing now? And I was able to have my first solo show. It was such a great experience. Haven't not had a solo show before. It happening right after Mexico. So where I literally I got off the plane, ran to my house to grab my install stuff at like 4 a.m. and then had to go to the gallery. It was back to back. And this collection on the right was what I ended up making while I was in Mexico. It was called How Was It? It was this diary documenting of my feelings of what I was experiencing while I was there. While in my studio space, I was able to blend fabric, liquids, textures together, all of them very different because each one of them had like a different type of reflection as to what I was learning while in Mexico. But it was so beautiful to be able to do this in that space just based off of the supplies and mediums that I bought there. So it was like new ink or new brushes, new textiles that I haven't touched before in Boston, at least.
Rixy, could you talk a little bit about how you got this exhibition opportunity and what the venue is?
Yeah, for sure. This is called Flowering Rock. It is a gallery space in SOA. They moved recently into the, oh, I don't know what they're called over there, like the Seaport area, Fort's Arts Space kind of area community. Um, and they had a beautiful little gallery, and it was still exposed and like composed in a way where you can have these limited kind of collections. It's very intimate. And I had met them just by going to SOA all the time. We went to First Fridays all the time. That gallery director ended up being close to another friend of mine who I work very much with him. Like we have our own little like crew of people. So she would be around our connections. So I would say that it was like very helpful to be present in different spaces. And plus like First Fridays at SOA is always fun. The art could be interesting, but at least you're seeing people, so.
Rixy, can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Sam, I just wanted to say I came to your opening that night and it was really, really well attended.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful space. So if people don't know what First Friday is in the capstone class, they should definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. Like start looking at, I mean, granted, we're in a COVID world now, so I don't want to suggest anything out of people's comfort zones because I wouldn't do it right now either. But First Fridays at the time, first Friday of the month, starting like in September for this fall summer season is open studios where all these galleries usually have new exhibitions. People's artist studios are open. It's a fun night of just connecting and enjoying art. And sometimes they have like free refreshments. So we're just like snacking and looking at art. It's pretty fun. But yes, Natasha, who is the gallery owner and director, we had met and she just really appreciated the work that I was doing and how we can bring like new insight to the space because SOA has a pretty cliched idea sometimes. So there's a lot of spaces that are experimenting and trying to work in so many new perspectives or I guess ideas. All right, so for today, I've brought a lot of these things forward with me. I'm still exploring, I'm still figuring out what I like. I love cooking, not like literally, but I just love the idea of cooking when you're creating something. This saying that I always say, or at least most Latinos might say, is like you're doing something con sabor, like with flavor. So you're really kind of blending all these different interests, callings, experiments, anything you want to. And by doing that, like it's been really fun. Like I really can't say anything other than it's fun. Like I get to feel like a kid again, just like playing around with crayons. Honestly, crayons is usually like my favorite medium. But I've been able to play with the things that interest me with what is provided. So again, we're in this digital world in this capacity that is a lot different than what we were used to, what is normal for us. So every space is going to be different. We don't know what things are going to be in a couple months or here nor there. So I always felt like kind of being present with what you have and what's accessible is really what you're going to be able to play with. When I was younger, I mean, I had like store-bought watercolors, paper and crayons. And now if I can afford that really nice $50 oil stick, like I'll do it just because it's going to look so good. So that's kind of how or how I like to move with my pieces. It just tries to take up as much space as possible. I'll kind of like overlap these images real quickly. This first one, On Guard, is a mixed media piece where I was able to blend some of the same ideas back from Mexico. I really wanted to like bring some of that back where I'm blending like coffee, liquid, fabric, architecture and design, but also story making and world building. Like these characters for me, I make Latina type characters because I never saw a Dominican character when I was a kid. Like Powerpuff Girls needed a brown girl. Street Fighter didn't have any type of nothings. And I play video games and literally watch cartoons all the time. So those were my biggest inspirations, yet I didn't find enough representation, you know? And after creating like moments within myself, I was able to collaborate with different organizations. And that was something that I'm still learning. I think it's such an interesting process to be able to take feedback, but also commentary and storylining from these other entities or people. Collaborating and connecting has honestly helped me grow the most too, because now I'm like building with somebody else and building that connection and relationship there. So I was able to present for Air Max Day a couple years ago with Nike and Bodega. This was an installation for a gala at the BCA inside of their cyclorama space, the Boston Center of the Arts inside their cyclorama space. A mural indoors to where I can like make dresses and start to build with fashion at the time. So that was really fun. And she also comes apart. I'm very much like, I need to know how to like put it away for later. So I was very proud of this piece to where it's built of multiple parts that's still like, I could pick it up and maybe put it in my car, even though everything is like an inch off or like hanging out the window. And then this bottom left piece was also a mural from last summer during the Central Square's Speak Your Peace campaign that I was given the opportunity to be the mural coordinator for. I took that opportunity to highlight a lot of all local artists, a lot of my own Black friends that I feel like just are so deserving of so much space and artwork that we don't have within Boston. Street art for me and mural making, if you're gonna have a big space, you say a big message. Like that was really what I took away without the gentrification and beautifying of spaces while they are literally evicting them, relocating, and wanting it to be a reflection of that present moment, but in this beautiful feminine energy that kind of runs within a little bit of everybody. And that's how I felt with creating this piece. So it was, I also didn't know this wall was gonna be this big until the day of. I thought it was like a third of it. And then I was just like, oh, all right, cool. We're gonna do with what we got. They gave us a big wall. I'm not gonna take a third of it. I'm more happy now, you know? But this has been my mixing and it's been really fun and exciting. So with everybody considered of where we're going, of what I'm doing, what all of us are doing, you know, the next day or for whatever, that's the biggest question, right? It's like, what are we doing next? Where do we want to go tomorrow? As soon as I'm done with this Zoom meeting, what am I doing after? You know, maybe have my lunch or maybe go paint a little bit, which most likely will go paint. And you get to do what you want to create for yourself. And that's the fun thing about Capstone. Like, I took it twice because it was the most freeing class. I was like, I can make anything I want. Cool. Given the fact that there's a wood shop, there's a painting studio, like as soon as I graduated, I had to go back to my room, you know, and start looking for studio space again. And now you're starting to create those resources for yourself, but use it while you got it. Cause now I'm like aiming for a wood shop in my house. That'd be so cool. So the limit does not exist. You can do anything you want. You can be or do, experience, enjoy, like, I don't know. I'm a very giddy person and child at heart to where I'm just gonna go and experience it. If I mess up, cool. At least I said I did it, you know, that's fun. Off my bucket list there. And it is very difficult sometimes to know how to get past that. I'm not gonna lie. Like, when I have that little moment of trying to figure out what do I do next or how do I go about doing this, I always have my little freak out moment. I tell this to Sam all the time because I was in his office having that moment. I was in every staff member's office having that moment, like Kat Mazza. I still talk to Zach Horn and have those moments of just like, you know, where are we kind of evolving and how do we like learn more? So it's my favorite part. And there's so many different things to do in that moment. This could apply to anything. Again, where I am in life and the experience that these other artists and people have as well, that's always like a next step. If you want it to be, you can also find consistency in what you're doing. But while having that question of limitations, explore whatever it is in front of you. We're in a digital realm now and there's all these new aspects to that. I don't understand NFTs and all these art token things yet. Like, that's difficult for me. But it's a new opportunity for the folks that do feel like that is a new door, you know, a new space to kind of explore. There's NFT galleries now, or again, I don't understand the lingo, but you know what I mean. There's new space every time you're in a different type of realm, whether it's a mural or boxed up in my room with just paper and a pen. Sometimes that's really nice too. Connect and collaborate. I have my crew of friends that we almost always do group shows together, but then we're also a big family. And that I found was important. I was always creating by myself, which was fine. But once I was able to have these conversations with other like-minded people, it was even better. I'm still close to some of the other alumni and students that were in the art department, and we still talk about our work. One of the other students I was close to, Nate, is in the studio right beside me and banging on the table or something. I don't know what he's doing, but that was his work process. And it was just so great to work together back in school and to still be close now. And that collaboration is what you learn all the time from your peers. So it's the best part about it. Strategizing and planning. It is good to have those grounded type of moments of understanding where your goals are going. What is this journey? That way, you know what to take, what not to take, and when you need to ask questions or when you have to create your boundaries. Everybody is different. So just because I like to do illustration doesn't mean I need to do the things an illustrator does. Just because I like to be a painter doesn't have to be the same, and so on and so forth. So it really is a time for you to be able to reflect. Could have put that in there too. Patience and trust. Oh man, you know, if you know what you're doing and if you're happy with the decisions you're doing, trust yourself. You know, if you feel like that's what you want to do, and have patience. Like, nothing is going to happen just overnight. I'm still figuring things out. All of us are still trying to understand this, but I trusted the fact that what I just did holds a lot of value for me and the overall plan or goal that I'm trying to go for. And that investment into myself usually is reflected into the world. I'm very kind of law of attraction sometimes, especially when it comes to art making, because a lot has been able to happen for me, and still will, because of the fact that I'm willing to kind of like work for it or invest myself back into it. Being a student to life is key. Allow yourself to learn everything you need to. I teach. I love what I do. I don't know everything. And I learned while I'm in class from students. They think that I'm doing, like, giving them a homework assignment. No, I'm just like, just want to know what you're doing. And maybe I'm seeing something new, you know, or maybe it's giving me a new idea. And then lastly, dust yourself off and try again, you know. Get a little singing in there, but just being positive at the end of it all. I think one thing that I like to really mention to folks is that rejection happens, failing happens, the negative happens. But in order for there to be a positive, a negative has to exist in some way. And those are the moments that you experience that are going to be your biggest kind of like testers. I think they tell you so much about yourself. There's been opportunities that said no to me that 2 months later, something else said yes. And I'm like, you know what? I'm honestly kind of glad I got that no, because this yes is a lot better, you know, or maybe that no told me something and they gave me feedback, or it literally showed me this chart of learning and understanding through it. So I've never been, sometimes I'll get like a little butthurt about rejection, but most of the time I'm just like, you know, that's fine. Something else will come up that's probably going to be a lot better. But that is all that I have to say and share with you guys. I can talk for days on all of this, but this is really kind of what I wanted to hit with you all, being in Capstone and gonna graduate soon, hopefully. And while we are in this digital new normal, I don't really know. It's weird for everybody, but I'm hoping some of this can be insightful and helpful back to you while you're doing what you're doing. So thank you guys for this time, for this energy, and yeah, for Margaret and Sam especially.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Rixy. And,
Thank
you know,
you.
just thank you for sharing all that work and all these really super inspirational ideas, especially for students. You know, Rixy is just a few years ago was in your exact position. So right now is a great time to, to ask her questions about, how she transitioned after leaving UMass Boston. You can see she's had a lot of success in these last few years, and just want to say, Rixy, we're all really proud of the work that you've been doing. It's been really great seeing your career progress. And I hadn't thought about that meeting that you came through my office that time, and I know that you were in this moment of like being kind of unsure of yourself or unsure of like your next steps. But now looking back on it, that was likely just like a couple of months before you received the Butler Scholarship, and had all these really major moves happening in your life. And I really appreciated you saying it's okay to not necessarily know, what you're doing right now, but just like keeping making steps towards, the life that you want to have and the type of work that you want to make. It's really important.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So why don't we open up to the Q&A? I see, Margaret, you asked a question really quick.
I'll leave my slides up just in case I have to refer back to anything.
Please, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I can actually just ask it, Sam. I mean, I was putting it in the chat in case we wanted to do it that way. But I know, Rixy, that you've gone on to graduate school.
I didn't actually.
Oh, you didn't. I thought you were in an MFA program. Are you planning on that? Have I misheard that?
I'm not planning on it. I was for a moment. So it was definitely something that was considered in my plate. I mostly just wanted to get my MFA to be able to teach.
Okay.
Now I'm still able to teach without that.
Maybe that would be a good thing, because I mean this this course obviously is about like professional kind of development, but also the career path and things. And you made that choice not to go to an MFA program. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that and why you made that choice. And then you're teaching. I think that's really exciting that you're doing adjunct teaching. So
thank you. Yeah, no, I love talking about it, and I try not to talk about it in like a funny way, but I think it's just very funny. I mean, school's expensive, and that regardless of what I wanted to do, what school I wanted to do, that was the first thing I had to consider. And I already knew that if I already had this debt from UMass, I wasn't going to be able to do the MFA just yet. So that was a big factor. But also at the time, I didn't want to just go straight into my MFA without having that time to reflect my undergraduate. So when it was in my plans, I was still hoping to have a break in between that when I'm at like a mature phase or really want to like go back into learning again, go into MFA, especially when I wanted to have that time to teach at a college level, because you had to have your master's to be able to do it. So I was like, okay, that's okay. I'll just explore around and do what I have to do right now. I'll do that when it's the time to do it. And when I have the resources to do it, because there's not that much scholarship for graduate school either. But when it came to teaching, I would take on like assistant teaching jobs or teaching artists, little temporary gigs at a high school level, middle school level. Oh my gosh. Middle school and elementary was, not the thing for me, but it was definitely experience, at least assisting. Because then again, like I wasn't in an educational program either. Like I needed to learn these things somehow. So I might as well just go on the field for it. Grew that into high school with working with the Elliott School of Fine Arts. A lot has happened there to where I was given like a lead position, teaching position. And then just through different connections, I was able to get this college job because I I did their like high school summer mural program. And when COVID happened, they were like, oh, our drawing teacher wanted to retire. He didn't want to do the Zoom thing. And we had built so much trust and experience. Like I told them pretty much what I wanted to continue doing and my goals, and just being honest about that. I'm like, I know I can teach these things. I just can't afford to go to MFA, dude. Like, look at I'm doing my best to experience what I can. And I was able to get that position, which was, it's great. It's awesome to be able to be here and still provide that knowledge and know that I can still provide this knowledge based off of the experience that I've gained. In between that, I was doing workshops with different organizations too. So I I did a couple workshops with Harvard and MIT's graduate educational program and like their Latino culture centers. So again, just experience of moving around and figuring out new spaces. It didn't have to look like one teaching thing for me.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'll just share with you, since you've graduated, we started an internship with Boston Collegiate, and that the students can apply and they can teach in their after school program for and it's really great. I mean, we've had several students go through it. So
that's awesome. Okay,
yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you for that question.
And an important thing too for students to note is just exactly what Rixy's talking about is, you know, these small steps towards, even if it's a position that's not like your end goal, they lead to other opportunities. And you'll learn a lot about yourself too, about either what you do or don't want to be doing with your career.
I will say I was like the queen of odd jobs for a while, but I loved it personally. I love odd jobs. Like I get to go places and meet new people for a temporary moment, which for me, I wasn't a fan of like routine things. And again, that's just being honest with my personality. So I was like, I don't want any day to look like the other. I need every day to be different. Even like committing on certain projects for too much time might, learning that commitment level everywhere. So I wanted to teach, not be a full-time teacher, and just learning how to like contort that to the rest of what I wanted to put into the pot, pretty much.
Yeah, and with your path too, it shows, since you're teaching at a college now, that you like professional experience can equal the same value as an MFA. I think a lot of people
in that.
Yeah.
I think you're actually answering. Tess has a question about she wants to know what an adjunct instructor is, and also what is the age of the students you teach. So
for sure. Adjunct instructor, I am kind of like this temporary contractor at the moment. However, we're just transitioning into this position. I don't have my master's degree, so I am almost like a guest teacher or guest artist, at least within the context of this school, and how they view their visual arts, because they also have a little bit of, like, again, every community is different, but they have a little bit of leniency of bringing in experts to be the teachers. So much as they have that experience and, that kind of history behind them. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
Oh, I think Tess was just asking the age of the students you teach, but you already mentioned it's college.
It's college. Some of them are older than me. Some of them have their children in there. I don't think age is I'm literally learning from middle schoolers all the time. Like my middle school experience was probably one of the worst. I'm always honest about that. Sixth graders were wild, but they taught me the most discipline in how to like organize my time with students. Like I wasn't learning that in high schoolers as much, or even with the college kids, because we're all almost the same age. I'm not going to talk to you like a child, but at least I understand how to create this organization and flow for us to learn for the day.
So I had a question from Mark Ossel. He actually sent a few by email, so thanks for that, Mark. He said, how do you choose the locations for your work? I think he's talking about the murals.
Sure. So like I had mentioned before, Boston is different than other communities. So say if you go to a community that is a lot more open to street art, say like Wynwood is crazy covered, Miami, California is also known, even New York, they have a larger scene. So it might look a little bit different over there, but for us, I know that you are typically knocking on a couple of doors. You could go to the business owner, you can then go to the property owner, then you have to go to the city and get a couple permits if that's what's necessary. Every wall is legit different, regardless of location. So there are some like indoor walls where I go up to somebody and I'm like, I need to paint that, or I just want to put paint on that. And they're just like, there you go, But then there's other people where if I might ask like, hey, is it possible? They're just like, no, like, we don't want that. We don't like that. Who sent you? Where's the money coming from? Do I need to pay? So again, every place has been different, but I also have found that these like mural opportunities, thankfully, are just becoming a little more like large and widespread. Like it's a lot different than like when my mentors went through it. You know, and so now I've been able to be in this wave where there's a couple opportunities here and there, or at least people acknowledging like, hey, we have these walls, we would like to set up some type of programming around it, which has been beneficial for me for sure.
And you just mentioned mentors. So do you mind just listing a couple?
Yeah, so I would say some of my mentors, especially for mural making, has been pro black Rob Gibbs. He's like a Boston art hero for sure. I have moved around Boston so many times. So when I first started meeting him, I was late to the game. You know, like he grew up with Roxbury. And it was great to be able to meet him where I was interested in with mural making. I would show up to these pieces being done, ask questions. I would sit there all day, bring my laptop, and just watch paint dry, literally. Like that's how I'm honestly connected with the muralists I have in different states, anything. Even in Mexico, I was just sitting across the street staring at him, and then he's like, yo, you got a problem? And I was like, no, I just like what you're doing. And we became friends off that. But him for sure. Margaret 27, who is also New York now, but was Boston based, was a footwear designer at Converse, and was able to meet him while working in the retail store. So they have really guided us a lot in learning about our own limitations, about what it means to paint. They've allowed them to like ask and answer questions. They ask us things, we ask them things. They have supplied me with so much different like resources, opportunities. Like most of the times when they text me, it's just like a link to something, like go read this, go do this. They might call at like, there was one time where everybody got like a group call at like 2 a.m. to go like paint a wall that needed to be done for the morning show. And we're like, all right, let's go. You know, you just pick up and go, and we'll be painting from all hours of the night. But they really want to be able to pass the torch. And that's what I've been finding recently is like, they want that legacy or this movement of street art and murals. Any mentor is going to want it to keep going on. So it really is forever being a teacher and then a student in some wave of it.
I was just going to say, it's almost like a whole other, like it was another school that you went to almost, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
That was your graduate school.
Oh, for sure. I love them. I like every time I see them, like we're all excited that mural season is starting soon because we all get to like watch each other paint again and like learn more things. And then I get to assist them. And that's when I learn the most, honestly. Like assisting these muralists has been the time that I've learned everything that I have during murals. Like I'm thankfully leaving on Friday to New Hampshire for 2 weeks to assist again. And I'm hoping to be able to get like a little more lift experience, a little more clean can experience, you know, like really taking in what these legacies are. So
that's great.
Thank you.
And important, you know, to note for the students here is just, you know, that importance of community is not only just for, you know, connections and networking, but it's also resources, you know, experience.
And you need your friends sometimes. Yeah, like if I can ask for my friend to come over and help me roll this big old wall, I'm like, you know, I can't do it by myself. I need to make $1,000 right now, dude. They'll come and help you out. And then same back, if they have a show that they're trying to do, I'm here helping them pick up stuff, being extra hands. Like it's so helpful to have this group of other, it's your tribe pretty much.
Yeah, I'm glad you found them.
Yeah.
Sherry is asked, on the art making process, do you have a favorite unconventional food, object, etc., or like type of material that you work with? Anything that's unconventional?
I use a lot of like random things, honestly. Like it literally looks like a semi-kitchen sometimes in my place. I'll experiment and then I realize like juice and other things have like really nasty odors and stuff. But wine and coffee has been really fun. Coffee especially because it has like the grit of the beans, and I can play with that texture, play with that with my hands in that sense, and then also play with this almost like watercolored, watered down tinting of the coffee. And then crayons, pastels, airbrush ink is my like newest favorite thing. It's literally like the ink that you would put in an airbrush machine, but I use it as like an ink or as a watercolor. It's a lot more vibrant, half or a third of the price, because I also like to be very economical. And it runs. So I can't do a large watercolor on a wall, but if I have a larger container of this, then it stays and I could really make beautiful types of like textures. So I pretty much like experimenting with what I have, honestly. If I only have juice in front of me, then we'll see what that thing does.
Tara asked a great question for your work. They ask, you spoke of storytelling with your work. Do you create a different story for each work you do, or do you imagine all your works taking place in the same story? How does this affect your process?
Oh, thank you. That is a good question. So again, I have like 1,000 different like tabs open physically and in my mind. Kind of beneath everything lives in the same world or universe. Again, being inspired by comics and cartoons, I love that they all can connect. I don't know if they will. I don't know who's connected, but I know some people that are connected, or I know some characters that are connected. So like, I'll kind of go back if I can. So if I go to like this image here, in On Guard, this is Izzy, and this character for me is, she's a strayed cat. This was one character that I was able to define a lot more, but next to the main characters of my universe, she's kind of like this extra companion that is this very Tasmanian devil-like type of like force and energy. She goes through her own stories within her own pieces. Like this is her episode called On Guard. The same with all of these being different episodes for these people. And some of these characters, like I said, develop these personalities and are able to create a being. Like I like to call myself a magician, because like I'm like, poof, now there's a new person in this world. In a weird kind of context, but as well with like this character, this is Princess B. So she's the princess of this space. I've used her a few times before and I've showed her throughout the ages. So I get to like really create that sense of person if I want to. I don't have to. So they don't have to have personalities or names and things like that. But I treat my characters like my children or my women or my friends, my partners, my family. So I always refer to them as she or her or whatever pronouns they have within the piece. And when I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I just created her, or go find her. Like I like to identify them by what they want to be identified as.
It's really invested in their story.
Yeah. I'm also trying to like pitch for a cartoon show one day. So I love cartoons and I'm able to create what I want through it, whether it's like random murals or like this actual diary I have of just like notes of all my characters and the space and time and stuff. So
a little follow-up for that one. Sorry, a little follow-up for that one. I remember we talked when you came to the drawing workshop about the storytelling. Do you keep that notebook on the side with all of these attached to like the drawings, or do you like put sticky notes everywhere? Like,
yeah, I do remember talking about that in the capstone. I literally had this like wrapped diary thing. The thing came undone, but this is like my diary of my characters. My main characters are like Beba and Peach. So eventually they'll be able to develop their world and I get to like kind of share more about like who they are. But it's literally like a whole diary of just what they do. And the parts around them. And again, like I create art that could be connected to them or not. It's literally however way I want to see it fit. But for the most part, even the random pieces, like I said, they could just be random people within that world. They don't have to be connected to my main characters. They just exist.
Yeah, thanks for following up on that, Tara.
Yeah.
Akira asks, how do you feel now as a teacher who was able to make it to this position they imagined at a young age, but having to get there from different path than you originally pictured?
Sure. Honestly, I always wanted to challenge the system. Like, it sounds a little, but that was important for me. Like, I don't come from money. I don't come from privilege. I don't come from entitlement. I had to try to figure it out with what I had. So if I can step into these places and still show them the same work ethic or hopes and intentions, then I would hope that'd be just as strong as any other resume, if not stronger, because of how I learned it. So I think becoming a teacher has been really fun, because then again, I try to ask if I can make it how I want to. Like, when I teach, it might not look like the next teacher, and sometimes I get nervous when other teachers come into my space, but I'm like, listen, this is how I want to do this class. We're still learning, we're still producing, the objectives are still very clear, but now I get to delegate a space based off of the students. So that's why I mean, like, it's not, to me, high school isn't different than college, isn't different than elementary school. I'm just taking a new body of students and doing something with what they got, pretty much, and the goals that I would like to be able to share, but we'll tune it in different ways. Sometimes I give my elementary students the same project as my college students, and it's like, same thing, you know, just in different language barriers, but it's a good question.
Yeah, totally. And Akira also asked a follow-up, do you feel like graduate programs should be highlighted as much as they are? I agree that many people can't afford school, graduate or not. So to be able to make it the way you did through connections and building relationships would be a goal of mine.
Sure. Again, it's different for everybody. If that's a goal of yours, that's not the same goal as the other student beside you, you know? And as long as you're knocking on doors and asking these questions, trying to see what is there, you need to explore to be able to find if that path is available to you. Like, if I do still feel like masters and graduate programs are helpful. Like, it provides a lot of knowledge if you want to soak in that knowledge. So like, if I was to go to graduate school, it might look a lot different now than when I wanted to go a couple years, because now I'm looking for different knowledge or different time and experience. So I do think it's a lot different for every person. But like I said, I've kind of played with my resources because I knew at the end of the day what was possible. And I also think, like, Eric Levine, again, the sculpture teacher, helped me realize that, because he also didn't have his master's, I guess, when he first started teaching in college. So I was like, wow, okay, so it has happened, this thing that I want to be able to, the space I want to get into. But I don't believe like my benefits should define me, or again, what those rooms want to define me as.
No, I'm just going to jump in for a second, Rixy, and say I really appreciated the way that you spoke of maybe not going right away and really giving it some thought.
Yeah.
Because I think it is a huge investment in your future. It's also, you know, you have a little time to kind of look at where's the right fit. And it's a really wonderful period to be able to go and only work on your work for 2 or 3 years, whatever the program is. And so making that right decision, I think, takes some time and some planning. So you have a really solid grasp on that, I think. So
thank you. And I mean, I'm still teaching myself. Again, like, your master's or graduate program is going to teach you a lot of things too. So you could go for different reasons. If I was to go back, I'd go maybe just for wood and sculptural work, because I can teach myself painting at home, or, you know, again, finding what do I want to get the most out of it from.
I was also realizing, just on a different note, that it was great timing to have you here, because you were the recipient of the Ruth Butler Travel Scholarship, and actually applications are due this Thursday for this next round of applications. And Maria Gonzalez, who I know is applying, asks a great question related to that. She asks, while in Mexico, were you met with any hesitation from local artists? I also saw that the mural you did there is titled Ni Una Menos. What was the response to that piece like? So kind of like thinking about the context and interactions with like a different scene of artists in a different country, different culture, right?
Yeah. I think artists love other artists. That's why I'm so excited to be here with you guys. You know, I don't know you guys yet, but you guys took this art class. You want to make something that makes me like you already, you know? So I think when I was able to start like exploring that space, people were very open. Like that at Thea Studio, again, like we're still very cool and connected. I talk to them from time to time, always looking to go back. And they were like, this is the space that we have. How can we accommodate who wants to be here and how we can like learn? Like I even did a mural inside of there too, like in their staircase, because I was like, oh, I'm here for murals. And they were like, oh, we didn't know, let's give you something. And like, this is a parking lot, the wall across from it, oh, I should have added it. It's covered, like it's huge. There's different building. It's covered in murals from international folks. So this was a hub. When you go in there and find tags and stickers from like the One Up crew, that was my first time seeing a tag from theirs in person. And they're like an international graffiti crew, man. Like it was amazing to say like, wow, they were here at one point. So the piece under here, Ni Una Más, it was made for my friend Piensa, and I met him while I was there. He lived in Coyoacán and he was painting some very like politically charged pieces. Like I said, I was just sitting across the street staring at him until we started talking. And I would come back, go get my lunch and come back because I didn't have anything planned at that time. And connected and told him like some of my goals and what we wanted to do. And eventually we became great friends. And he was like, all right, let me show you the process of doing it here. You know, literally we walked up to businesses and people would just say yes. Like might want to see what you have planned, but like they owned their wall. So it wasn't the same process as Boston. I was like, oh my gosh, it's that easy. Like to the point where at the end of the summer, I had like 2 or 3 other walls plans that I couldn't do because I didn't realize like how that process was so much different over there. And when it came to being a little more politically charged, it was really cool because my goal is to be able to be a lot more sensual with my women on big spaces, to really like highlight all that a woman can be, all that that energy is, which is always limited, which is always silenced when it comes to public art. Like it's hard when you're doing community, family friendly stuff and want to put titties on the side of a wall, for lack of better words, but you know. And so with this piece at the time, there was a lot of political rage with the police versus the women. They were kidnapping women, raping women, killing women. And it was like at a very peak time when I went there. So I was definitely like having to be very aware. Like even when I was at Atea, they were telling me, you know, it was downtown, don't stay past 7 p.m. One time I stayed at 9 p.m., went outside and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna sleep inside because I'm not gonna even test it because of just like how in the middle of that heat things were happening. And so I collaborated with Piensa on that thought since he was a political artist, always trying to reflect like these systems. And we were able to create this piece of like women battling these monsters or alebrijes, which are like these Mexican spiritual guides, in reflection of that time, because he felt like it was very important. So it was great to like learn more about doing that too, like having that statement piece.
And can you talk a little bit about that title and what it means?
Yeah, oh yes, for sure. Ni una más is like not one more. It was something that the women were chanting during the protest. While we were painting it, some people loved it. Some people were like, that's not pretty, like it's too serious and blah, 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 blah. Or they didn't like his monsters, you know, simple things. People got something to say all the time. I don't care anymore, but at least not when it comes to art making. Like a grandma will come up to me in my ear and be like, little lady, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, all right, thank you. I'm gonna finish my piece now. But so it was fun to experience what that meant to create bold statements a little bit more with experiencing him.
Another important note for the artists of Capstone is to have a thick skin and, you know, hear and take in criticism, but also trust yourself in terms of what you're making.
Yeah, you don't have to take criticism in a way where you're consuming all of it, but learn what is meant to be for you and what's challenging your certain aspects and thoughts. Honestly, the way when I showed you guys my older UMass stuff compared to going into my stylized, it was because Zach Horn, and I tell him this all the time, Zach Horn is what like hit me on the head with criticism. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna show you style. You know, he was just like, your pieces are great. You have technique, cool. I don't see anything about you. Where's your style? Like, you know, you're missing something. I got so mad at that. I was just like, I'm going to show you style. And now I'm like, I have this stylized world because that criticism like stuck to me. So
Perfect.
Yeah, and those pushes from professors aren't meant to cut you down. They're meant to like really push you, right?
They're very helpful.
Yeah. So thanks for answering that. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Josie or Yossi ask, are there any artists that inspire the style of work that you produce? Like, who are you looking at, and what do you think really this has helped you build your own style?
I mean, I'm inspired by plenty of different art. It could be very realistic Renaissance art in the way that they like layer their color and their vibrancy and that smoothness, all the way from contemporary abstract pieces that we've learned about, even pieces that I don't like. There was an assignment that I got asked to do where it's like identify pieces you don't like, but still find something good about it. Like you can literally learn from everything and also be inspired by like non-art related stuff. But I would definitely say some of my main artists when I was younger was like Gendy Tartakovsky, the illustrator of Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, Samurai Jack. Beautiful color, simplicity of like cartooning, but then also be inspired by Pixar and what Toy Story did with like this 3D kind of element when Jimmy Neutron came out. So early works, but for artists now, I would say some of my biggest inspirations are James Jean as an illustrator. Absolutely adore his work. And I could write some of these down too. Mika Rotenberg, I always like to say that she is an inspiration for me. She's so weird. I went to one of her artist talks and she was just weird during the talk too. I was just like, I like you. She creates a lot of like exaggeration of body, of form, and she's very sculptural with her media. Oh, the cute dog. No, it's okay. And she does this sculptural perception of using body and form, light, dark, media. Like if you please, Mika Rotenberg for me has been a top because I learned about her through UMass. And who else? I mean, so many different street artists all the time. I'm inspired by my friends too. I take some of their techniques. I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna try that out just a little bit. And we all blend together, but still find like our own individuality. But I would say those two have really shaped a lot of what I have an understanding for when it comes to art creation.
That's great. I think it's important. You're saying too that you have all these other influences outside of the art world in terms of like pop culture, anime, cartoons.
Oh, for sure. I also dance. I like to sing. I go to like random discussions. I used to go to magic shows all the time when I grew up in Vegas because they just give you free tickets every week. That was my biggest inspiration in terms of like glitter and pizzazz, going big and bold, so.
So we have time for just a few more questions, if that's okay with you, Rixy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Great.
Yes,
So Bonnie.
Questions.
Yeah, please. Yeah, if anybody else has any more, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them.
You can also ask with, on camera if that ever makes you more comfortable. So don't be afraid to ask anything, even something simple. Like I'm just excited for where I've been able to do with art. So there's never a question that's like too little or too big.
So Bonnie asks, the colors in your murals are so vibrant and powerful. Are there any specific inspirations for your color palettes that you use for your pieces?
Oh, that's great too. Thank you. I love natural colors. I love technically all these colors you could find like in a jungle, in a tropical space, in the desert, in your backyard. Like my biggest inspiration, honestly, when it comes to colors is like moss and rust. There's some rust of copper where you're starting to get iridescent like flicks. And putting that on like the dirty browns and grays of the copper, of the orange. That is like my favorite moment, looking at like the cement floor and seeing like all the different tones, because cement also has glitter in it sometimes. And also like neon bright colors. So I love juxtaposing like very natural tones, which is all this range. It has so much like aggression, in its texture and coloring, and then putting it with the like soft, iridescent, holographic moments that almost seem like unrealistic, just as much as the way that this moss grew looks unrealistic. And then putting those together, because I also think it shows like a range of like what women are, of what people are. So neon, hot disco colors, and like baby poop and dirt. That's how I like to categorize it.
Tess asked a great question that I'm also kind of curious about, which is how do you divide the work and like when you're collaborating, working on a mural with others? Like that one that you did in Mexico seems like a really huge success with that. So I'm kind of curious to hear other experiences.
I'm very much a freestyler. So we might have a couple of ideas, but until the moment of, I don't like to plan too much because maybe you're coming with a different arsenal today, you know? And maybe you found that really cool like gold can that you want to like bring out today. So that happens. Or maybe you're just interested in something. So like Piensa, this guy, he does a lot of like monstrous types. And usually he works in black and white, but he was just like, you know, you like neon colors. I kind of want to try a neon monster today. And I was like, cool. Usually I don't put like, I never really added like dogs or other multiple figures, but he wanted to like embody this like small family. So I was like, okay, I'll try that out. So it's really like listening to each other, like the same way you do with any relationship. And also giving him the space to try things out and being honest with him. So like the mountains in the back, he was like, it looks so snowy. And I was like, yeah, I was about to say that. It looks super snowy, you know, and we were able to talk about it. We left it because we didn't really mind that much in the back, but it was an open dialogue about what's working, what's not, and what is going to make us happier at the end. So like nowadays, I collaborate maybe with the same like 2 or 3 folks because we have a better understanding. But literally, they'll show up one day like, this is what I have, this is the theme that I'm into. We might draw a little bit together, and then we play on the wall, literally. And if they're doing something that looks weird, I'll be like, what is it? How can I use that? So it's a lot of in the moments.
And I'm sure too at that scale, it really matters too on pacing. You know, if you're collaborating with somebody else, like, I'm sure there's people who work, more kind of methodically and slower paced, and other people who are just like really ravenous and super quick.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're also honest with the fact that there's bumps during it, or you might get annoyed with the other person. Like, why are you doing that? Like, well, what is it? But that's the fun piece is that this is just one moment. Like, we could leave it here and do another one tomorrow, So we can leave our mistakes on the wall, and that's like a vulnerable moment for each other. Like, me and him will reflect back at this and like pick the pieces that we like and don't like, and hopefully plan for the next. So that's like the beauty of collaboration.
And what was the time frame on that piece?
This one didn't have a time frame, so we were able to just move how we wanted to. I think we did it under a week though, because I didn't want to take up too much time and he wanted to respect it. And at the same time, if I was slacking in something, he would help pick that up, or if he needed help like filling in all that orange, I might help a little bit. So again, it was this like day-to-day kind of thing, texting each other like, hey, how much time do you have today to work on it? Or who has this, who has that? So every collaboration is different. And then there's like mural organizations that want you to do it in like 3 days. So you gotta talk it out, really.
Mm-hmm. So I think we're getting close to the end of the time. I'm just curious, I don't know if Margaret, if you have another question, but I did want to ask Rixy if there's just any other like imparting like last words of knowledge about like, especially around either capstone or just like finishing up school and making that transition for the students.
For sure, thank you. Yeah, if there's anything that I could leave you guys with, literally it's go with what makes you feel right. Like if you can trust yourself and trust your instinct of wanting to explore, feeling like that's right for you, then it's right for you. Like it's, at the end of the day, you have to just be honest with yourself. There's no one else that can give you the validation or the things that you might need. And there's always going to be people that want to support you and things like that. But I would say like a lot of these things have to just be out of the fact that you want to do it, even if it might not make sense. And I think when you're doing your capstone, when you're making all these choices about what your life looks like, it doesn't have to make sense for other people. Because if I could wake up and say that I'm still happy with today because I was able to do X, Y, and Z, then that's most important. And people are gonna enjoy that because they get to see you be happy. Or like I enjoy just seeing people be happy, whether we're doing the same thing or not. I'm like, oh, you're doing that though, whatever that thing is. I don't know what it is, but it looks awesome. Great job. So that's what I would always leave people with.
Yeah, thanks, Rixy. And I really loved your notes too, of just reinforcing that, like, you know, you don't necessarily have to know exactly what you're doing, and just like trying to be self-driven and determined. I know that's a big transition for a lot of students going from the regular classes where there's particular assignments into capstone where it's much more open-ended. And you know, I think that you've shown that, like, as long as you're like self-driven and that you're committed to your ideas, that you'll be successful. You know, that you'll find what your work is supposed to be.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Rixy, for being so generous with your time and your advice today. I mean, it's been really wonderful. So
you guys, thank you all for listening, for hearing, for asking all these questions. I'm asking myself those same questions because now I get to realize more things about myself. So as much as you guys think that you're taking knowledge from here, I'm literally soaking in just as much of this experience. So thank you all for letting me be here and being able to do that with you.
Yeah, of course. We really appreciate it, Rixy.
No problem. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for letting us into your class, and especially to Rixy for the great talk, and to Margaret Hart, professor for Capstone, for helping organize this. I'm Sam Toabe. This was a artist talk by Rixy Fernandez for the University Hall Gallery, and just signing off now. So thank you everybody, and hope you all take care.
thank you.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.